with me? Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons.
Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report for July 26th, 2017. We're in the 8th year of Chungi and the 6th month and the 4th day. I'm Tim Elder, and I'm here with Kyle
Yoder.
Yes, sorry, thank you. It's early in the morning. I knew that, but I somehow briefly had a senior moment there. Kyle Yoder, thank you for being here this morning. And we'll be hearing from Kyle in a little bit later on. But first, let me get to the weather and the REMAs, and then we'll hear from Kyle after that. It's 63 degrees and cloudy right now in the Cheonryung area, and it's only going to get up to 76 degrees today, with mostly cloudy skies. Last week we had that really hot and humid air with all that air coming up from the Gulf, and now this week we have the air from the eastern Canada coming down and giving us some really autumn temperatures, September weather right now. We're always in that tug-of-war between the air from the Gulf and the air from Canada, and the Canadian air is winning this week. But it's going to gradually get warmer and warmer as the week goes on. 83 is the normal high for this time of year in this area, and we're going to get closer and closer to that as we go through the week. Don't see much rain coming in today, but we had some. Looks like we had some rain last night. The road surfaces were wet this morning. All right, I want to go to my Rima for this morning, and I'm in James, the book of James in the New Testament, chapter 2 and verse 23. And it says, the scripture was fulfilled which saith, Abraham believed God, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of God. That phrase, friend of God, really catches my attention this morning. But I want to, before I go into that, I want to read our Cheonsongyang Rima. I'm in the, let's see, what book is this? This is the book 11, The Root of the Universe, and I'm in chapter 1, the fundamental order of the universe. I'm on page 1677 in the English translation. The differentiation of species, this is words that Father spoke in 1994. The differentiation of species is very strict. There are thousands of species between amoeba and monkeys. The Korean word wonsungi covers both the monkeys and apes, and I think if I were to translate this again, I would probably use the word apes here rather than monkeys. But anyway, between, let's say, amoebas and apes, each of these species brings forth their young through the gates of the females and males, which means thousands of births. Thinking that one could go from one species to another, disregarding the levels of thousands of species, would suggest that it could all be done within one birth, a notion that is completely wrong because it denies the fact that the gates of love need to be passed through. How can an amoeba pass through the gates of love for thousands of species and become a human being? Would similar bone structures make all the other characteristics similar too? Similar bone structures can be found everywhere. Stop saying such crazy things. So here Father is talking about the theory of evolution, and of course his conclusion of that is that it's crazy and that we shouldn't be talking about that. In James, the phrase "the friend of God" is used, and we learned through the original substance of the divine principle that human beings were created out of God's Shimjong. Shimjong being the definition of Shimjong being that this is an irrepressible impulse by which a subject partner has an irrepressible impulse to experience joy by giving love to an object partner. And that's, I think, the definition of Shimjong. So by Shimjong, and a subject partner has an irrepressible impulse to give and give and give and give, to continue giving without any expectation of receiving anything back. Because the motivation for giving is to experience joy by giving to an object partner. So there has to be an object partner in order to experience joy. Because there has to be an object partner to whom you can give. But just to give and give and give and give and to forget that you have given, and to give, and so God created us created the universe as His object partner, and then created the universe for the sake of human beings, so that human beings, when perfected, would be His object in love. And I'm reminded of that when I see this phrase in James that says, "The friend of God," that we could be the friend of God. I'm reminded right now of a conversation that I once had with a taxi driver in Korea. I used to work when I was working at the newspaper company in Korea. Different editors would take turns putting the paper to bed at night. In other words, putting out the last edition. And usually I would work until about 2 or 3 a.m., I guess. And of course, the only way I could get home, I've already been in Korea for many years. I understood what he meant. In Korea, a friend is someone, well, it depends. There's not a strict definition. But for example, if your child is going to a Korean public school and he says, "I want to bring my friend home," that means that he wants to bring someone home who is in his same grade. All right? In public school or in any school, a friend is someone who is of the same age group or same age, basically in the same grade. Anyone who is in a lower grade is your younger brother or sister. Anyone who is in a higher grade is an older brother or sister. And so in adult society, it's not so strict. There's usually about 5 years, I think. There's kind of seems to be the sort of the loose definition of a friend. Anyone who is within 5 years of your age can be your friend. Older than that or younger than that, no longer a friend, but it's a brother or sister, either older or younger. So, but anyway, in Korea, friend means that you are equal. It's a horizontal relationship, as opposed to an older sibling or younger sibling where there's a vertical relationship. So I don't know how it is in the society where the author of James was writing, but if we sort of think of it in that way, to be a friend of God means that we are an equal with God. And in fact, that's what Father teaches, that in terms of love and in terms of value, we can be equal to God. We can relate to Him as our subject and object partner. And so that's really an incredible thing when you think about it. And that is how Father teaches us about the value of human beings, the value of the perfected human being, that we are in that position where we can be the friend of God. That's really something incredible. I think there's an evangelical song a praise song that goes, "I am the friend of God," or something like that. If the second king were here, I'm sure he would break out in song right about now. But I'm not able to do that, unfortunately. For me, at least, maybe fortunate for you. But to be the friend of God. So that is what Father. That is the value of human beings that Father taught. So then, switching now to his words about evolution, you can see why he would be so adamantly opposed to the idea of evolution, that there was no creator, that there's no designer even, but that things just happened by chance, and we developed from something like an amoeba, something like from that into through the various stages, and then through the ape, and then humans evolved from apes. You can see why Father would be so strongly opposed to that kind of an idea, that there was this idea that there was no creator for us to be a friend to. There were a few things that Father really spoke strongly against. One was evolution, of course, communism, and of course, homosexuality, and of course, free sex. All these things are the things that come to mind immediately as I think of, the things that Father really spoke strongly about. They really got him excited. These four things would really get him very, very excited. And they were all things that undermined the value of human beings as God's friend. And I think that's what I remember about Father speaking strongly on those things. So those are my remas this morning. I hope that you got something out of them too. And we'll come back in a minute now and we'll meet Mr. Kyle Yoder, and we'll be talking with him as we go through the news of the day. So see you in a minute.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for July 26, 2017. 8th year of Chungi, the 6th month and 4th day by the heavenly calendar. And let's meet Mr. Kyle Yoder. Why don't you introduce yourself whatever way you like. You can tell us whatever you want us to know about you.
Good morning, Tim. It's great to be here with you. And yeah, it's been fantastic out here in Newfoundland. Yeah, my name is Kyle Yoder. I'm from Denver, Colorado. My background is kind of an entrepreneur. I work with my family, and we all are in the car business, and we've kind of started to get into the Airbnb business. I've come out to Newfoundland last summer, as well as this summer. I went to the Colorado Trek with Youngjanim and the group, and yeah, it's been a fantastic experience. I've grown a lot in the last year. I can't really believe how much has changed in my personal life, both spiritually and just personally, and it's been a fantastic journey. Met a lot of amazing people and really got to see some amazing things happen here.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. It's interesting to hear that you're an entrepreneur, because in Cheongguk, in the kind of society that we envision for Cheongguk, entrepreneurs are really important. And in fact, we hope that this will be a society where people will be able to start their companies. One thing that Kukjinim was telling me once, he says that try to think of a person who became a billionaire by taking a salary. Probably no one. I don't think you can name anyone. That people who become billionaires start their own companies. So not only billionaires, but he was saying that really the best way to build wealth is through equity, to having equity, to build equity in companies. In other words, to start your own company and to grow that company. Of course, not all companies succeed. In fact, I think I read somewhere that within 5 years, something like 80% or something of companies fail within 5 years or something like that. But so the Cheongguk is, we envision that to be a society where it'll be easy to start a company, there'll be, in other words, not many regulations or as few as possible regulations. So if people fail, that they can start again and try again, and of course it'll be a society where there's a strong families, so that when people fail, they can fall back on their family and try again, and so keep on trying. So, and but it'll be a society where there'll be a lot of small to medium-sized businesses and not many large businesses, because the way that large businesses grow and control markets is by their relationship with big government, and that a lot of the regulations that choke out small and medium-sized businesses are written by the lawyers and lobbyists hired by large businesses for the purpose of making it more difficult for small businesses to come into the market. That's their incentive to choke out their competition. And so, if government is small, then it'll be more difficult for large businesses to do that. And also, we hope that the legislature will be more responsive to by getting rid of, or at least minimizing, the role of money in politics. Large businesses will have more difficulty controlling the legislature and controlling the executive department, so that they will create regulations that favor large businesses. It'll be much more difficult to do that. So it's really great that you're an entrepreneur, and I guess your car business is going well.
Everything's a work in progress. I mean, the main thing for me is not to quit and to continue to make progress.
Right.
And when I think about what you said as far as the government colluding with large business, I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, they have, 0% interest rates. They they could literally be losing money every single year, yet still be in business because they're colluding with the government. The government's giving them the ability to exist when they shouldn't. And it really just goes kind of back to the power of the family, because typically it's very hard to compete, but because I'm not just doing it for me, I'm doing it with my family. It's a give and take relationship. We all work together. We're all on the same goal. We all realize what we're fighting for. We're fighting for freedom. We're fighting for glory for True Father. That gives us the ability to actually compete. And I mean, not that I've made it by any means yet, but I'm on the way. We are on the way, and we're doing it for this reason, to strengthen our family, to give glory to True Father.
That's a wonderful testimony. Yeah, wonderful testimony.
Gives us power, we can actually compete. And now, like, the individual can actually go against the big business, even with all their 0%, even with all their free money, we can still get there. And people want to connect with people. They want to help people. They don't want to go through the third party angel. They want to go directly to the people, just like we want to go directly to God.
Yeah. And, the King recently has been asking people to cut off the relationship with Amazon.com. And he's saying that we need to spend our money with people who share our ideals, and especially Jeff Bezos, of course, is saying that Jeff Bezos is like is a person who does not share our ideas, our ideals, and I think also too that I was making the point that. We need to spend our money in a way that creates employment in our area, because, for example, here in this area of northeast Pennsylvania, there was a problem. This area was having a huge problem with people graduating from high school and then having to go elsewhere to find jobs because there weren't any jobs available in this area. And imagine what that does to the family. That doesn't help the family grow stronger. It actually weakens the family, because you have all these, kids coming home maybe for Thanksgiving, maybe for Christmas, maybe 2 times a year, and then people say that these events, Thanksgiving, Christmas, are really stressful events for families, because people who are apart for the entire year come back for just one weekend, and all sorts of things come out during that one weekend. So even that 1 or 2 times a year is not really conducive towards building a strong family. But if you have employment in the area, then families can stay together in an area, and kids don't have to go off to the West Coast or New York or Philadelphia in order to find jobs. And so the Pike County especially tried to do that by building they tried to have a light industry center, but that project failed, and eventually Kukchinim purchased that land, and then is now developing that land, is now developing employment in this area, and also here in this village of Newfoundland as well. Was it in 2014, I guess? They had an emergency meeting here in this village. We're becoming a ghost town. All the businesses are leaving. Well, now they don't have that problem because more and more people are coming here, especially to the Sanctuary Church. People come here every weekend, and then they spend their money here. And so more businesses are now moving into the village now as a result of Sanctuary Church locating here. So it's really important for us to think about those kinds of things and who we're going to do business with, rather than doing business with Jeff Bezos and making him richer. We can have relationships with local merchants and people that we know and share ideals with. That's really important. Maybe I'll buy my next car from you.
I'd be happy to supply it. Yeah, it comes down to energy. It's where do you want your energy to go? I mean,
yes.
Money is a form of energy. Do you want it to go to your family? Do you want it to go to other families? Or do
Yes.
you want to go to some artificial big corporation
Right, yeah.
that's not there to help people? They're there to get profit. And profit's not bad if it's earned, but they don't necessarily want to earn it. They just want to acquire it.
Yeah, I think small and medium-sized businesses are very important, and we need to really support them. Let's go into the news this morning, and we can talk more about these kinds of things as we do that. The top news on the Drudge this morning is about the president's visit to Ohio last night. And so let's see what went on there. Donald Trump took a victory lap Tuesday night in Ohio, hours after being on the winning side of a legislative squeaker that will restart the national debate over Obamacare. We'll get into that a little bit later. You think that's easy? That's not easy, the president declared as he congratulated the U.S. Senate for moving to begin debating a bill repealing and replacing the Obamacare disaster. It's time for Democrats to stop resisting. That's their term, resist, resist. Trump fumed moments after drawing a giant boo at the mention of President Barack Obama's name. They have to do finally what's right for the American people, but probably we'll do it ourselves, he said, referring to Republicans in Congress. Today we won 51-50 and didn't get one Democratic vote. Think of it, he vented earlier after a raucous round of CNN sucks cheers brought on by a presidential critique of fake news. A more sinister roar floated through a Youngstown arena. A man holding a pillowcase painted with Trump, Pence must go, shouted at the president from about 20 yards away. For 2 full minutes, police made their way to the solo demonstrator as fans clawed at his banner. Trump stood silent, watching and furrowing his brow. At last, when the protester and his banner were yanked outside, Trump deadpan, where the hell did he come from? So apparently there was some excitement at the Youngstown event last night, where one pretty brave man, I would say, going in there with a Trump Pence must go banner. Yeah. Another disruption came in the form of a teenager hoisting a Russian flag to Trump's right. Boy, he's a young one, Trump marveled after cops dragged him off in handcuffs. He's going back home to mommy. He's in trouble. And I'll bet his mommy voted for us, right? Trump's rhetorical knives were out, slicing through the air as he mocked the news media for parsing his every word. Every president on Mount Rushmore believed in protecting American industry, Trump declared at one point, but getting through the sentence required a series of twists and turns whose punchline was aimed at the press risers in his direct line of sight. Now here's what I'd do, Trump mused. I'd ask whether or not you think I'll someday be on Mount Rushmore. We'll have to see. Well, we don't rule him out. Abraham Lincoln was elected with 40% of the vote, because there were 3 candidates that year in 1860. But anyway, here's the problem. He detoured. If I did it joking, totally joking, have fun, the fake news media would say he believes he should be on Mount Rushmore. So I won't say it, okay? I won't say it. But every president, they'll say it anyway. You watch tomorrow. Trump thinks he should be on Mount Rushmore. Isn't that terrible? What a group the president scolded as about 200 members of the press corps looked on. What a dishonest group of people, I'll tell you. Trump also repeated on Tuesday night the themes of a landmark August 2016 address he delivered on immigration reform, another campaign moment he brought to Youngstown. Calling for a merit-based system similar to Canada's, Trump's bottom line remained steadfast from last year. Going through some photographs here. Those seeking to emigrate into our country should be able to support themselves financially and should not be able to use welfare for themselves or their household for a period of at least 5 years, he declared. The sixth campaign-style rally of his presidency drew fans from the working-class base that propelled him to the White House. The billionaire Trump's presentation was a mashup of the themes that soaked through the last 2 months of the topsy-turvy 2016 campaign. In America, we don't worship government, he said in a Reagan-esque flourish. We worship God. We will never be silenced by the media, Trump vowed, and the president pledged to defend America's borders. Cue the shouts of "Build that wall." Don't even think about it. We will build the wall, he insisted to cheers. Trump reiterated his long-term pledge to tilt the North American Free Trade Agreement in America's favor, to levy reciprocal border tariffs on trading partners, and to watchdog Iran as it tiptoes on the edge of compliance with a nuclear deal. He boasted about efforts to liberate our towns and cities from MS-13 and other criminal gangs and prosecute, I guess, it looks like a misspelling, prosecute his war on sanctuary cities that shield illegal immigrants. We don't want radical Islamic terrorists in our country, Trump trumpeted, but he earned his most robust applause at the mention of job recovery and household economics. Trump urged Ohioans to resist any temptation to cut their community's losses and sell their houses. Don't sell, he shouted. We're going to get those values up, and we're going to get those jobs back, and we're going to fill those factories or rip them up and build new ones. About 8,000 people responded with a combination of warm applause and venom. They yelled, "Lock her up and build that wall," before Trump took the stage. They screamed for job-boosting trade deals. They hooted for both stock market records and the resurgence of clean coal. And Donald Trump's hardcore backers in northeastern Ohio couldn't get enough of Make America Great Again hats. Just like the 2 years' worth of Trump rally-goers before them, they roared when protesters were let out. Lara Trump, the president's daughter-in-law, she came here, by the way, with Eric, her husband, was the first to be interrupted as she warmed up the crowd. "I must be special to have a protester already," she exclaimed. And Lara, more than 6 months pregnant, lectured the media like her husband Eric's famous father. As shouts of fake news rose to the rafters, she declared that the same people touting this crazy Russia story are the ones who gave us the fake polls, the same people who said there was no path to victory for Donald Trump. Tuesday's Ohio visit follows similar rallies since Inauguration Day in Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and Iowa. Youngstown's 5,900-seat Covelli Center, the president's venue of choice, supplemented with more than 2,000 floor seats on Tuesday, hosted a Bernie Sanders rally last year. Trump opted for a quick land rally at the regional airport. That was the last year, I guess. And the building used mostly for hockey games, WWE fights, and touring Disney shows is itself emblematic of the heavily Democratic city's tortured relationship with Washington. The late James Traficant represented Youngstown and parts of surrounding counties in Congress from 1985 until 2002, when he was expelled following convictions for taking bribes, racketeering, and filing false tax returns. Let's see more about this venue. We're not so interested in that. See if there's anything else about Trump. Displaced from jobs and watching their families become casualties of an opioid drug epidemic, voters in depressed Rust Belt cities like Youngstown flocked to the brash Republican, I guess in last year's presidential election. In the end, Clinton's built-in advantage in the Buckeye State's urban centers could not withstand the charge, and Trump beat her statewide by 8 points. The president will need to repeat that performance in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin if he wants a second term in office. Youngstown unemployment still runs above the national average. The city's Democratic mayor told CNN this week that Trump's reputation as a bare-knuckle political fighter has attracted fans from across the aisle. No matter how wild I may think the past 6 months have been, Mayor John McNally said, no matter the tweet storm that went out this morning on a variety of subjects, I think the people in Youngstown and Mahoning County and Trumbull County really appreciate the president's no-holds-barred mentality towards those who he thinks oppose him. So that's the Democratic mayor saying that. Kind of looks like kind words toward the president. Tuesday began with a chaotic staff explosion at the White House. Okay, we know about that. Okay, so that's that's about all that this article has on the president's rally last night in Ohio. And the president really needs to get out like this away from Washington. In fact, Hyung Jin-im has the second king has recommended that he not be in the White House at all. That he go to the Gold House, to the Trump Tower in New York, and just stay there, because Washington is such a swamp. And he's been fighting a lot of people in Washington until now with all these leaks, and finally now he has a communications director who says he's going to stop those leaks even if he has to fire everyone. We'll have to see how that works. How did Colorado do in the presidential election? Yeah. Who did Colorado go for? Clinton or Trump? I'm not sure.
We went Clinton.
You went to Clinton?
It's a battleground state. I mean, we have people from California coming in, swinging blue, and then Texas. There's Texans coming up as well, though. So it's kind of, it could go either way.
And what do people in Colorado think about Trump these days?
Some people like him. I mean, it's like anywhere. There's people who like him, the people that don't. Overall, I mean, of course, I love Trump. He's fantastic, and I agree with you. I think he should leave the White House. I mean, environment is everything. If you put yourself in the right environment, you're gonna get the right result.
Northeast Pennsylvania is very definitely Trump country. And leading up to last year's election, people put yard signs, right? Trump or Clinton. There was not a single Clinton sign in all this area. I was driving around, looking for Clinton signs, and I finally found one out in Milford, which is basically our. It's the most liberal area in this area. I found one sign for Clinton in Milford on a back street. Must have been the chairman of the local Democratic Party or something like that. And I think one guy over there still has his Trump sign up as you're going out of town. I don't know if you noticed it, but I think he still has his Trump sign up in his yard. So people here are very definitely Trump. And on election day, people were at the polling place. People were lined up, and as I was in line, I was hearing people commenting, "I've never seen this many people lined up to vote before." It was a very, very strong turnout in favor of Trump in this area. I think one reason, of course, is the coal issue. This is within Pennsylvania. It's one of the most economically depressed areas, and I think people put a lot of hope in Trump that he would bring real change. And that he would make a break from the past policies of both Republicans and Democrats, because like the second king, they figured that Republicans and Democrats, what's the difference? But Trump was definitely a very different person and is a very different kind of president, and a lot of people find hope in that, and we certainly hope that he succeeds. But he's meeting a lot of resistance, and I don't know if he can get his face on Mount Rushmore or not. If he succeeds, I imagine he can. Well, we'll have to see. I don't know how much room there is on that mountain to put additional presidents there, but maybe he can have a separate sculpture all his own on a different mountain. All right, let's take a break now. We'll be back in a minute or so with more news from a Choniguk perspective.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for July 26, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Chanuguk, Hyungjin Moon, and I'm here with Kyle Yoder this morning. And thank you for joining us. And the next subject we'd like to talk about is Obamacare, or the attempt to repeal and replace Obamacare. So two things happened a lot of things happened yesterday, but two things happened in the Senate yesterday with respect to Obamacare that are being sort of there are big stories this morning. One is that the Senate voted 51-50 to open a debate on Obamacare. And of course, the reason it's 51-50 is because it was 50-50, and then Vice President Pence threw to cast the deciding vote in favor of that. But then when they got to talking in the specifics, then it got more difficult. And the headline on Fox News this morning is that the Senate blocks proposal to repeal and replace Obamacare. So, you may be thinking, wait a second, I thought the president won yesterday. Oh, yeah, he won one and then lost another. The Senate has blocked a wide-ranging proposal by Republicans to repeal much of former President Barack Obama's health care law and replace it with a more restrictive plan. Senators voted 57-43 Tuesday to reject the plan in the first vote on an amendment to the bill. Those voting no included 9 defecting Republicans. The amendment vote portends a rough road ahead for GOP efforts to advance some form of Obamacare replacement, even after the Senate narrowly revived the core bill in a dramatic test vote Tuesday afternoon. Senators plan to vote Wednesday on another Republican amendment repealing much of the health law and giving Congress 2 years to come up with a replacement. A combination of solid Democratic opposition and Republicans unwilling to tear down the law without a replacement in hand were expected to defeat that plan as well. In the failed vote Tuesday night, GOP foes reportedly included Senators Susan Collins, Bob Corker, Tom Cotton, Lindsey Graham, Dean Heller, Mike Lee, Jerry Moran, Lisa Murkowski, and Rand Paul. So Rand Paul was also against this amendment yesterday. The list includes both moderates and conservatives. The vote underscored problems Republicans will have in winning enough votes to recast Obama's statute. The rejected amendment was centered on language of McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, erasing Obama's tax penalties on people not buying insurance, cutting Medicaid, and trimming its subsidies for consumers. Language by Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz would let insurers sell cut-rate policies with skimpy coverage, and there was an additional $100 billion to help states ease costs for people losing Medicaid sought by Midwestern moderates. The vote came after a high point in the chamber when Senator John McCain dramatically entered for the pivotal vote, the first since surgery and his cancer diagnosis in Arizona. Unified for once, Republicans and Democrats applauded and whooped for the six-term lawmaker. He said, thumbs up with both hands for the GOP vote to move ahead on debate. President Trump on Tuesday warned 4 opponents to Obamacare repeal legislation, 2 of them Republicans. Any senator who votes against repeal and replace, they'll have a lot of problems, Trump said during a speech in Youngstown, Ohio. So, Kyle, you're a businessman. Tell me how Obamacare has affected your business.
Yeah, my experience with Obamacare, I mean, really Obamacare, what it comes down to is it's not healthcare, it's a tax. I mean, I had a great plan. I was paying $150 a month. It was $3,000 deductible. I could get any medication I want. I could go to the hospital, no problem.
But he promised that you could keep your plan if you liked it.
Oh yeah.
That you could keep your doctor if you liked it.
Yeah,
they promised
let me
that.
keep the plan. It was great. I mean, instead of $150 and a $3,000 deductible, I got the notice that it was going to go now to $1,000 a month.
Ooh,
and be
$1,000 a month? And a $10,000 deductible?
Yeah, and so basically at that point, why do you even have insurance? I mean, you're better off just paying out of pocket. So yeah, I mean, I had a very affordable. I was part of that market segment that was targeted. And why was why are we targeted? At the end of the day, it's an attack on the family. They know, healthcare is every family's major concern. So if they're concerned about healthcare, are they more likely to take a risk and start their own business, or are they more likely to go get a job where it's nice and safe and there's benefits?
Mm-hmm.
And then would they ever leave that job knowing that they have to spend $1,000 a month for healthcare?
Mm-hmm.
And if I have to spend $1,000 a month for healthcare now when I'm young and healthy, I mean, what's going to happen over the years? I mean, that's your retirement, that's your future, that's your family's college, that's everything.
Yeah. Yeah. What I did, of course, was that I just paid the penalty until I was old enough for Medicare. And so as soon as I was old enough for Medicare, I got on that. And just the basic coverage with that, and that at least saves me from having to pay the penalty every year now. So that's you have to be 65 to do that, though.
I got a few more years.
You have a few more years. It's it seems that everyone, at least everyone that I've read about or talked to, agrees that Obamacare is not good. We're not keeping our plans, even if we like them. We're not keeping our doctors, even if we like them. And we're paying a much higher premiums, much higher deductibles. And yet Democrats have been able to, in every vote, have been able to maintain a solid opposition to any replacement. I'm just wondering how they're going to explain this in the elections next year. But on the other hand, the Republicans can't agree. Of course, in the Chandrika Constitution, government is excluded from the health insurance industry altogether. Government, by the Constitution, cannot get involved in insurance, and the idea is that this will be left up to the free market forces, which I think may be a good thing for medicine in general. California wants to adopt or some people in California want to adopt a single-payer system. One problem, it's going to cost them $400 billion, and they don't have that. Although recently I read that they're having now a mini gold rush, so maybe that'll pay for it, at least for 1 year. Let's see if that'll pay for it for 1 year. And if it's going to cost California $400 billion, what is it going to cost the entire nation? And yet many people say that the whole reasoning behind Obamacare in the first place was to create something that they knew would fail and would leave no other option except for the single-payer system, which has been, of course, tried in many countries in Europe and also in East Asia and many countries. And it's not working anywhere. I mean, it works for a while until, as Margaret Thatcher famously said, you run out of other people's money. Because when you run out of that, then the whole thing collapses. And it's collapsing in many countries. The healthcare systems are in deficit. It's good for a while. Like, one time I had to go to an emergency room in Korea, and I was on the healthcare system there, and I paid very, very little. I think less than $100. I think after all was said and done, I had a problem with a kidney stone, and I went in there, and they didn't keep me overnight or anything, but they just they took some. X-rays or something like that, and the doctor gave me some pills, even some painkillers, I think, and even that was all included in this $50 bill, I think. I don't remember how much it was. It was less than $100. It was less than $100, and I also went there for a follow-up visit a few days later. All that was included. So you might think, wow, that's great, that's fantastic. Let's adopt the Korean system. Well, one problem: the Korean system is going broke. I can imagine why. With that kind of, with that kind of thing. Of course, something was being taken out of my salary because I had a job in Korea. Then something was taken out of my salary each month, but it was not a lot of money. It was very little, I think, and a lot of it was taxpayer money that was going into the system. But even then, the system is in the red and it's going broke. So for a while, these single payer systems work, but not on the long term. Eventually, you have to understand that there's no free lunch. So we're in trouble here. The whole country's in trouble here because we got a system that we agree is bad, but we can't seem to come up with one that works. And of course, the one that works is the one that no one wants to vote for, because the one that works is the free market system, and no one wants to vote for that. Oh, I know all these people will lose insurance and everything. But I think that if we were to go to the free market system, not just in insurance but in the whole medical industry, that costs would come down a great deal. And wherever you have monopoly, costs go up and quality goes down. And wherever you have government intervention into the free market system, costs go up and service and quality goes down. So I think we're just going through a series of trial and error until we finally have no other option than to go kicking and screaming into the only good option. That is the way it is with heaven. People go into heaven kicking and screaming because it's the last option they want to try, but it's the only good option. And I think that's what Cheongguk is going to turn out to be. It's the only option that's actually going to work because it's the option that is in line with the design by which God created this world. Eventually, you have to use your machine the way it was designed, right? According to the way you want to use your vacuum cleaner as a hammer. It's not going to work so well. You end up using it to vacuum your house. That's how things are going right now, where we're exploring every option except the option that works. And so we're going to go through a series of failures. And unfortunately, the cost may be that there may be an economic failure. 1,000 people paying $1,000 a month for, wow, I can't even imagine that. I really grateful to God that I'm 65 years old, because I've been paying into that system all these years. All right, let's take a break now, and we'll come back in a minute with more news from a Cheongguk perspective.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for July 26th of 2017. We were talking about the government intervention in the markets, and There's another form of this. New diesel and petrol cars banned from UK roads by 2040, it says here. And this is an article in The Telegraph, the UK paper. Stephen Swinford will be, plans to ban the sale of new diesel and petrol cars, that's gasoline cars by 2040, in a bid to encourage people to buy electric vehicles are a tall order and will place unprecedented strain on the national grid, motoring experts have warned. Michael Gove, the Environment Secretary, has warned that Britain can't carry on with the gasoline and diesel cars because of the damage that they are doing to people's health and the planet. There is no alternative to embracing new technology, he said. However, the AA warned that the national grid would be under pressure to cope with a mass switch-on after the evening rush hour, while Which Car magazine warned that electric cars are currently more expensive and less practical. Just 4% of new car sales are for electric vehicles, and concerns have also been raised about whether Britain will have enough charging points for the new generation of cars. Diesel drivers on congested roads in towns and cities across the UK face new pollution taxes and could also be barred from traveling at rush hour. Ministers have identified 81 major roads in 17 towns in cities where urgent action is required because they are in breach of EU emission standards, putting people's health at risk. The air quality strategy urges local authorities to first try to reduce emissions by retrofitting the most polluting diesel vehicles, changing road layouts, and removing speed bumps, I guess. However, it concedes that as a last resort, councils will be allowed to impose tough restrictions on the most polluting diesel vehicles as soon as 2020 to bring down the levels of harmful nitrogen dioxide emissions. This Telegraph is writing this in a critical way, whereas I think the Guardian is much more positive towards this. It says that Britain is to ban all new petrol and diesel cars and vans from 2040 amid fears that rising levels of nitrogen oxide pose a major risk to public health. The commitment, which follows a similar pledge in France, is part of the government's much-anticipated clean air plan, which has been at the heart of a protracted high court legal battle. The government warned that the move, which will also take in hybrid vehicles, was needed because of the unnecessary and unavoidable impact that poor air quality was having on people's health. Ministers believe it poses the largest environmental risk to public health in the UK, costing up to £2.7 billion in lost productivity in one recent year. So they want to go all electric, basically. And the Telegraph is saying, okay, but can the electric grid handle that? So many cars charging up every evening, people going home and plugging it in to their household current system, and then and they say that it's more expensive and less practical, but the government is going to basically force people to buy these cars by outlawing gasoline and diesel vehicles. So as a car salesman, how would that affect your business if, I can't imagine this happening in America, but supposing it did, how would that affect your business?
Well, I think back, even as a consumer, if you take like Toyota, for example, mm-hmm. They have this model called the Toyota FJ Cruiser. Mm-hmm. Very reliable, very popular. It's kind of a competitor to Jeep. Mm-hmm. It has a very reliable engine, like just one of the best products they've made, in my opinion, as far as reliability, durability, holding value. Mm-hmm. Just an awesome car. But the government has these fuel restrictions where the average miles per gallon of the fleet must be a certain mile per gallon. Mm-hmm. Well, when mile per gallon is your only concern, so now because of that, they had to discontinue FJ Cruisers, even though maybe it only gets 20 miles per gallon, but because it's reliable, it's going to stay on the road twice as long as something that gets 35 miles per gallon, but is a junk car that's going to end up in the scrapyard. So it's not just the miles per gallon. It's right. Like what's going to happen at the end when the life cycle of this car is over, right. And the value of the car.
So if you have to, if another person has to buy 2 cars to meet the lifespan of the FJ Cruiser, then you have to factor in the resources that are going into that second car that this person is buying.
Yeah.
Don't you? But that's not taken into account. Only just the miles per gallon is considered.
Yeah. So like instead of buying a very reliable car that's going to be able to produce you income, whether that's getting you to a job or whether that's in an industry, now they turn you into, let's just turn this person into an unending consumer where it's nothing but consuming, not producing, but just consuming. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about. They don't want you to produce, they want you to consume, and they want you to be consumed and just get weak.
Of course, some of us, you may be aware, only buy used cars. So something like the FJ Cruiser would be attractive because it holds value. And even as a used car, how long would you say an FJ Cruiser lifespan would be? Would it last for how?
I mean, if you maintain it at 250,000 miles is not abnormal. Definitely 200,000 miles easy. I mean, if you take the 2000, same thing. They stopped allowing them to make it, but it was the V8 engine in the Toyota 4Runner model. It's a V8 engine, but I mean, this engine's capable of going 300,000 miles. So even though it may get 2 or 3 less miles per gallon, I mean, it's the ultimate engine. I mean, it's gonna save you. I mean, 300,000 miles, you might be able to go 20 years without replacing it with little maintenance.
And that may go through. You know, some vehicles get passed from parent to child. When the child goes off to college, a vehicle might go off to college with that child. Especially the longer lasting ones, the safer ones. So maybe that the vehicle would have been a candidate for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, really, what it comes down to is all this is about inheritance. You know, passing on what you have to your children. And that's the fall. You know, passing on our inheritance, God's inheritance, the thing that's ours, to the next generation, and that's what they're mostly seems to be concerned about stopping.
Yeah, and I think the good thing about the free market is that there is many people, millions of people making individual choices, then adding up to as aggregating to the best possible decisions on price and variety, and popular vehicles will succeed and unpopular vehicles will not. And if something like the FJ Cruiser is popular, then it will continue to be produced. But when you're focusing just on miles per gallon, as you say, then you're actually being short-sighted. But if you're trying to plan the economy, and planned economies, obviously we've seen in the Soviet system where planned economies fail. And of course, China recognized that, and so they gave up their planned economy and went to a capitalist economy, although they try to keep their communist dictatorship for now. But always, if human beings, or especially human politicians, try to plan the economy, so okay, this is good, this is bad, we're gonna ban this, we're gonna allow this, then eventually you have unintended consequences, and you are distorting the market, and it always winds up bad. It always winds up badly. But this is what France and the UK now are trying to do, and by saying that okay, we're going to ban all gasoline and diesel cars by 2040. Well, we'll see what happens. I predict that they will have more difficulty than they expect. Anything else you'd like to say on this? I guess not. Okay. Let's go through some other headlines. A third of California households have no savings and risk financial ruin. Sperm count in Western men plunges to record low, may lead to human extinction. 90% of American men are overfat. May lead to human extinction. Of course, the West is not the only place where men live, so I think maybe other areas of the world may have a higher. Anyway, report 99% of NFL players tested had brain injuries. Americans upbeat on jobs and economy. Elites privately warning about crash. Now, a lot of people are in fact warning about a crash for various reasons, and I'm seeing this in many places that causes me concern right now. That for one thing, of course, the debt, the burden or the debt of the national debt that has been building is now up to $20 trillion. People have been saying for a long time that this is unsustainable, and yet we continue to build it up. No one knows where it's going to actually break, but I think the economists agree that it cannot go into infinity and that it will break at some point. And of course, we have I guess next month or so, there's going to be a big thing in Congress about increasing the debt ceiling, which is always makes for big problems and possibly potentially government shutdown, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But it does seem that there is a lot of talk about this possibility of a crash that may be happening. Of course, what is it? Janet Yellen said that there's not going to be another economic crisis in our lifetime. That's what she said. Wow. That's what she said. I like, it's hard to say that with a straight face. But yeah, if government keeps on interfering in the marketplace, there will be an economic crash in our lifetime. Maybe Janet Yellen will be out of office by then. But anyway, we can believe what we want. Ancient humans had sex with mysterious species is another headline. And resistance, a cash cow for the left, but not the DNC, not the Democratic National Committee. Wasserman Schultz, a staffer arrested, trying to flee the country. Secret Service agent accidentally shoots himself. We have to be careful with our guns. Traces of controversial herbicide found in Ben & Jerry's ice cream. I guess nothing is sacred anymore. Deadly king cobras smuggled into U.S. in potato chip cans. Cal-Exec secession campaign moves forward. House Republicans seek to dodge border wall vote and still headed for vacation. Tillerson takes time off amid White House tension. McCain unloads in Senate return. We're getting nothing done, he says. Sessions in the doghouse, Republicans on brink of civil war. Clinton courting Spielberg Clooney to adapt his book, The President. And New York Police Department cop's daughter born 3 years after his death. From Russia with Love, Colbert, biggest weekly win ever. Venezuela accuses Rubio CIA of plotting to topple Caracas government. Venezuela is really, it's amazing that they continue going on, but that just shows you the power of an organization. Once it's created, it can somehow continue to exist. And the Venezuela government, because they are an oil-producing, in fact, they have quite a lot of reserves. I think they have the largest reserves in the world, and yet because of the socialist system, they're really collapsing. Drone-carrying cell phone, marijuana crashes in prison yard. Sounds like someone was trying something. Criminal probe into Pentagon's $28 million spending on uniforms. A motorsports boom in China. And North Korea able to launch nuclear ICBM next year, officials warn. Kim threatens USA. New effort to prep for attack. And bomb shelter sales boom. We're going to have to go into that in a minute or so. Let's take a break right now, and we'll go into the North Korea thing after we come back.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Kahr Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Kahr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit kahr.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for July 26, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon, and I'm here with Kyle Yoder. And this segment, I wanted to start by going into the situation with North Korea. We keep going back to North Korea, and some people may kind of getting tired of this, but it's important because, as you'll see in a minute here, there's one person who's predicting that the war between U.S. and China, if it occurs, is not going to happen in the South China Sea or the East China Sea or in Taiwan, but he's predicting, he's a man with the RAND Corporation predicting that it'll happen on the Korean Peninsula. And things are happening on the Korean Peninsula that seem to be just, despite people's efforts, seem to be taking us in that direction. I don't think there's anyone in the world who, not anyone, but almost no one in the world who wants to have a war on the Korean Peninsula, and there are many reasons for that. But it seems that that things are just happening that are dragging us in that direction, despite people's best efforts. One thing happening is that we've covered this in the last couple of days, where there's a drought that's going on in North Korea now, the worst in 16 years. The last time they had a drought in Korea in North Korea in the 90s, there was North Korea had to. Despite their pride, which is quite significant, they had to ask for help from the world, and they were somehow bailed out. And there's a speech that was given by the U.S. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in Colorado recently, and I think this. I've read this speech the reports on the speech a number of times. I haven't been able to get an actual full copy of the speech, but I think it's one that's important for us to read, because I think it gives some very important insights and gives us a kind of a reality check, really. This is in the UK magazine Independent. The war between the U.S. and North Korea is not unimaginable, America's most senior military official has said. Major General Joseph Dunford, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, did not rule out the possibility of a, quote, horrific, unquote, conflict. Although admitting that such a war would involve massive loss of life, General Dunford said it was his duty to prepare military options in order to protect U.S. citizens. Quote, many people have talked about military options with words like unimaginable, he said. I would probably shift that slightly and say it would be horrific, and it would be a loss of life unlike any we have experienced in our lifetimes. And I mean, anyone who's been alive since the Second World War has never seen the loss of life that could occur if there's a conflict on the Korean Peninsula. Of course, he's referring to the fact that about half of South Korea's population is located in a very close proximity to the border with North Korea. And North Korea has something like 8,000 artillery pieces lined up along that border. Of course, they have different ranges, and not all of them can reach Seoul, but some of them can. And put together, there was a New York Times article that said that they're capable of firing up to 300,000 shells an hour into South Korea. Not all of those will reach Seoul, but a significant number will. And North Korea is capable of creating a tremendous loss of life just with those artillery shells. So, of course, they have Patriot missiles, and also they have one or two THAAD missile batteries now that have been installed, with 4 additional ones that have been blocked for pending environmental considerations. It's crazy, but that's what it is. those are capable of blocking some or all of the missiles that North Korea may fire at South Korea. But the artillery is different. There is no defense against the artillery unless you have something like the Israelis have, what they call the Iron Dome, which they've developed. And sometime back, 5 or 10 years ago, there was discussion in South Korea about purchasing the Iron Dome, but that never happened. And so there's no defense against the artillery. The North Koreans can shoot at will until their artillery is knocked out from the air, from either U.S. or South Korean Air Force, or by return fire. So at least for the first 2 or 3 days, North Korea will be able to create absolute havoc in Seoul and in that area or surrounding area where there are about 20 million people living. So that's what I think Dunford is referring to here. And so he continues, but as I've told my counterparts, both friend and foe, it is not unimaginable to have military options to respond to North Korean nuclear capability. What is unimaginable to me is allowing a capability that would allow a nuclear weapon to land in Denver, Colorado. That's unimaginable to me. So my job will be to develop military options to make sure that doesn't happen. So he's speaking as a military man, and he's a very professional military man, and he has certain duties and responsibilities that he's been assigned to do, and he's saying that he will do those responsibilities. General Dunford was speaking at the Aspen Security Forum of intelligence and national security officials. North Korea has continued to test long-range ballistic missiles in recent weeks and is believed to have developed several nuclear warheads despite threats of severe consequences from the U.S. and its Western allies. It is thought that Pyongyang does not currently have the technology required to launch a nuclear weapon at the U.S., but Donald Trump has vowed to take strong action against the communist state. Well, they did demonstrate they have technology required to launch a missile that could reach as far as Anchorage, and whether or not they have been able to miniaturize the nuclear warhead to the point where they can actually put it in the tip of that missile is the question that is some people have different opinions on. Of course, you can put other weapons in that missile. You could put chemical weapons in that missile. You could put biological weapons in that missile. So it's not just the nuclear threat, although that is the one that people are focusing on. So on Tuesday, the state-run North Korean Central News Agency quoted a North Korean Foreign Ministry spokesman threatening to launch a nuclear attack to the heart of the U.S. should Trump administration attempt to remove President Kim Jong-un from power. Should the U.S. dare to show even the slightest sign of attempt to remove our supreme leadership, we will strike a merciless blow, etc., etc. And this is, of course, something that they say pretty much every other day. Now, the interesting thing, though, is what China is doing. China, as we reported yesterday, is rearranging its forces along its border with North Korea. And it looks like they are preparing for something. In other words, they're preparing, and it's assumed that they're preparing for the influx of a large amount of refugees from North Korea, either as a result of economic destabilization or U.S. military action. And in late April, China said that if the U.S. attacks North Korea's nuclear facilities, they will not intervene militarily. And that followed a meeting between President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping in earlier that month, in earlier April, where Trump said, "Listen, this issue with North Korea has got to be taken care of, and we want you to do it. We want China to do it. But if you cannot or will not do it, then we will do it." Recently, of course, Trump and Xi Jinping met again in Hamburg, and then right after that, I guess Chinese officials speaking in Beijing have been saying, "Hey, listen, don't keep coming to us. What do you expect us to do?" So they're kind of pulling back now. So they're in the cannot or will not stage right now. That's where they are. They're saying they're building up their forces along the North Korean border to block refugees, and they're saying basically either we cannot or will not. We won't say which, but one of those two is true. So more and more, this is getting very, 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 very dicey, and it's very concerning. And a person of course, China eventually wants to become militarily superior to the United States. That's why they've been stealing so much technology and so forth, and they've been building up their navy. You know, and in all the years of Chinese history, they've never had a navy of any kind. But now they're they purchased one used aircraft carrier from Belarus or Ukraine. I think Belarus. Anyway, one of the former Soviet republics, and they sort of refurbished that, and now they've succeeded in building their own aircraft carrier, and they are using those aircraft carriers, of course, to claim 90% of the South China Sea, where $5 trillion in world trade passes through every year, and of course also to threaten Taiwan. I'm with everybody else. I don't want war on the Korean Peninsula, but I'm more and more concerned that is where we are being dragged. And if you look at the way wars start, especially in the modern era, wars seem to start sort of despite everyone's wishes that there not be a war. And but eventually someone gets put into a position where they feel that war is their only option, or else they make a miscalculation. You know, like when Hitler invaded Poland and started World War II, he miscalculated that Britain would not intervene, because after all, Britain was sort of, backing down on everything else. Why wouldn't they back down this time as well? Or when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, this came after an oil embargo against Japan, where Japan felt that either they were to, and there were good reasons for that oil embargo, by the way, because Japan was doing a lot of bad things in Asia. But Japan felt that in order for them to continue on their course, they had to secure the oil fields in Southeast Asia, especially in Indonesia, and that the only way that they could do that would be to strike out against the United States and defeat the U.S. Pacific Fleet. So, that's how wars begin in the modern age, and it just seems like there's a series of events that I feel is very, very similar to the series of events that led up to previous wars. And we can look at this, from the providentially, about judgment and so forth. But just looking at it strictly as a journalist, looking at the series of events that are happening in the world today, in around the Korean Peninsula, I just feel that we are being dragged in that area, despite our best intentions. Right now, U.S. State Department is trying their best to come up with a way that North Korea can be stopped, but Kim Jong-un is not going to stop. Here's an article in Fox News reporting on the same event in Aspen, saying how North Korea may test another nuclear device as early as tomorrow, because tomorrow is the anniversary of the armistice that ended the Korean War in 1953, July 27th. And of course, it's only an armistice, and technically the two sides are still at war. And the Korean War was basically a war between the United States and China. Of course, it started out with North Korea invading South Korea on June 25th, 1950. But very quickly, the U.S., because the U.S. had actually pulled out of South Korea the year before, thinking that, we don't need to, nothing, what can go wrong, basically was their thinking. What can go wrong? And then when the North invaded the South, then General MacArthur went in there, and of course there were 16 nations of the UN force and all that. But basically, it was the U.S. And then they fought and they defeated the North Korean army between June and October of 1950. But then in October, the Chinese intervened, And then the North Korean military, which had already been defeated by the U.S., was basically subsumed by the Chinese military. And so from October of 1950 to July of 1953, it was a war between U.S. and China, basically. You know, taking away all the diplomatic and military niceties and so forth. It was basically a war between U.S. and China. It was the first war basically between the U.S. and China. And of course, General MacArthur wanted to end it right then and there, and he asked for not just one or two, but a bunch of nuclear weapons that he could use to. What he wanted to do was create a radiation ban along the China-North Korea border, so that the Chinese could not continue sending troops into North Korea. He got fired for that, and so eventually it ended in a armistice or a truce, and it has stayed that way for all these years. With a military demarcation line and a demilitarized zone that extends at 2 kilometers, about a mile and a quarter on either side of that. And you know what? There's actually no fence between the two sides. So there is a fence that appears in photographs sometimes, but that actually is a fence that the South Koreans have built along the southern border of the demilitarized zone. It's not a fence that actually lies between North and South Korea. It's actually just a series of posts that were set up in 1953, and some have rotted away, and so in some places people don't even know where the exact line is. Sometimes animals have kicked them over and stuff like that. But there is this military demarcation line that is one of the most militarized areas of the world. It's a demilitarized zone, but it's one of the most highly militarized areas of the world. Unless we have to pray for some kind of divine intervention, because otherwise I don't see any other way that that war can be avoided there. So anyway, that's what I see happening on the Korean Peninsula, I'm afraid. And that may also, of course, affect the economic situation as well. So things are not looking good at all, either in there or in other places. In other headlines, guitarist walks off stage mid-song to stop assault. The wannabe Instagram stars hire professional photographers for perfect photos. Escape, a woman lives alone on a remote island for decades, surrounded by horses, seals, and birds. Dissolve corpses to stop climate change. Declassified memos confirm civil liberty violations during Obama-era spying on Americans. Key Obama aide hauled before House Intelligence Committee. ISIS establishes a new beachhead in the Philippines. This illustrates the problem with the terrorist organizations. The Philippines, of course, has had an Islamic problem, or Islamic what do you call it, resistance or insurgency, thank you, problem in the southern areas of their islands. And ISIS is taking advantage of that, making a new beachhead in Asia. So it will, I guess it's going to transfer there. We haven't heard much from the Islamic countries in Asia, such as Malaysia and Indonesia, but perhaps we'll be hearing more and more of those. Seattle housing market, hottest since 2006 bubble. A U.S. Navy patrol boat fires warning shots near Iranian ship. Russian bombers intercepted in NATO airspace. Orca assault shakes up boaters. Beijing speeding up underwater drone tests in South China Sea. There again, China is increasing its military capabilities in every way that it can. And, if 4 or 5 years, they'll be able to match the U.S. military capability, probably, because the U.S. is going down, China is going up. And of course, now Trump is trying to change that curve, but it's not an easy thing to do. He recently commissioned the Gerald R. Ford as a new aircraft carrier, but that's not going to actually be commissioned until 2020. If the U.S. Military planners may be thinking that if we're going to have to fight China sometime, it may be better to do it sooner than later. That may be the thinking of some military planners. I would not be surprised at all if that were the case. You know, I remember reading one speech by Father. I'm going to try and find it again. It was a God's Day speech. There was one final paragraph in that speech that was in the Korean version, but when I checked the Korean English translation, it had been omitted. And this was a paragraph that said that something to the effect that God may have to move a significant portion of the world population to the spirit world. Moving to the spirit world. That's sometimes often a tough thing to do. But I hope that does not happen. Of course, always prophecies like that are dependent on whether human beings accomplish our portion of responsibility. And we'll have to pray and do the best we can, given the current circumstances, because I know that God is not interested in, He doesn't take any joy in moving people to the spirit world, especially in such large numbers. He wants us to perfect our character and to receive the Word of God and the Lord of the Second Advent while we are here on earth, because if we go to the spirit world without doing that, it becomes very difficult. But depending on how the providence moves, that may be His best option. Well, we come to the end of our broadcast. Anything that you'd like to say before we sign off?
Thank you for having me. It's been great to be back in Newfoundland to see everyone. And if anyone out there hasn't checked it out, I highly recommend coming out here. It's amazing experience.
Great. You're actually in the Bluestone Farms right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm staying with Greg.
Yeah,
Greg Knoll.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about people who participate in their intern programs.
He has an amazing operation there, and the interns. I mean, it's huge value you gain. I mean, great people. People from all over the world show up. You learn. You know, it's total independence is what he's going for, and teaching. So,
but he makes you work hard, right?
You do work, but I mean, it's great. You're working with great people, and you get a skill you can bring with you for the rest of your life.
That's wonderful. All right. Well, thank you for being with us this morning, and we hope to have you back sometime soon.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, everyone. I hope that you have a good day. God bless, Godspeed, and may His kingdom come.